Today is our 12th session. We have discussed, this is where the series will end, Vedanta. Next week, I have a topic on Vedantic philosophy for comparative analysis of Buddhism and Vedantic philosophy. That will be coming next. But for that, you don't need a total background of all the 12 sessions. That is how we will continue forward. Vedantic philosophy can go deep and can go wide. We will take up one topic at a time and keep expanding on it. Now, what we have discussed so far is a philosophy that can help us understand our own nature, understand the world that we live in, and understand the basic question of who we are. If we can understand this basic question that who we are, who we truly are, then if we can keep questioning on this idea of who we are and become close to an understanding, then a whole world of compassion will open up. If I can understand who I am, and that leads me to understand who everyone I interact with and everyone who crosses my life is, then it will be a really important understanding that will change how I operate. Right now, our understanding and our belief, we live for ourselves, our friends, and our family. That's our basic paradigm, that's our basic concern area. So I really want to limit my love, my affection, my compassion, my understanding, my dependence on a very small group of people that I interact with. But the closer I get to the understanding of who I am, the better my understanding of people I interact with will be. And my patience, my acceptability. Is the outside noise too loud? Should I speak louder? Am I audible?
You are audible.
Is there outside noise disturbing?
Little
No,
bit.
it's okay.
It's okay.
You can't.
So what we are trying to do is, with this question, who am I actually? Even if I understand or if I keep questioning, it wants us to realize it. But the realization will come after a lot of intellectual inquiry. This intellectual inquiry and realization will help me open my heart and my mind to others. As I understand myself, I will understand others as well. And that is my gateway to end my suffering. Like realizing who I am is important, but till I realize perfectly well, till I am inquiring at an intellectual level and I have not experienced the ultimate truth, that inquiry itself is a gateway to larger understanding of myself and the people I deal with and the situations that I find myself surrounded with. So if I'm struggling with an emotion, if I'm struggling with a situation, and if I'm struggling with people who are around me, this intellectual analysis, this intellectual struggle that I go through in understanding who I am plays a very big role to ease out the whole situation, to bring in more compassion, to bring in more adaptability. Once I realize who I am, then the paradigm changes. Then it is no longer about compassion. It is then totally about the idea that I have realized who I am. And I know for sure that I am the consciousness that witnesses everything, whether I am awake, whether I am sleeping, whether I am dreaming, whether I am in deep sleep, whatever state I am in, the witness that observes all the three states of waking up, of deep sleep, and of dream state, that witness is what I am, that pure consciousness that is available across the three states is what I am. So, this realization, once it happens, then all the suffering or all the sorrow and all the joy and all the emotions, they are nothing but experience that does not touch the true witness. The inquiry phase, the intellectual inquiry phase is important. The realized state dissolves everything else. So a study like this is important while I am studying and inquiring. The state of inquiry is important, and that's where all of us are. All of us can benefit tremendously by contemplating on the idea of who we are. The more I contemplate on this idea intellectually, the more I bring it at the top of my mind, the more I feel this whole questioning process purifies my mind. This is the impact of inquiry. Inquiry, up till the point I realize, is an essential tool for mental purification as well. Did I make sense?
Yes.
Comments, questions, please feel free, because today I have a lot of external noise, and it will help me if you keep engaging with the conversation. It will bring my focus and attention back to what I am speaking. So feel free to interject, share your thoughts. So this whole study is with the idea that if I realize who am I, then all my suffering dissolves, because then nothing else real. Only pure consciousness is what you experience. Any study or any inquiry or any practice, whether it is of yoga, whether it is of meditation, whether it is of the ritual that we do at home, which is a devotional practice, anything that I engage in which will help me alleviate my suffering has an end goal of alleviating the suffering permanently. Most of the times we want an end to the suffering. I'm in a particularly bad situation. I want that situation to end. But all philosophies, whether it is yoga, whether it is Sankhya, whether it is devotion people talk about, all the paths have an end goal, which is to end our suffering for good. Becomes another of my challenge, that to understand that what ends my suffering temporarily and what ends my suffering for good. So, along with the question of who am I, the next question that I should be asking myself is, how can I end my suffering for good and not on a temporary basis? Because the world is designed to keep us engaged so that we end, like we are focused on ending only one kind of suffering. Not that we want to end suffering for good, but we want to end the thing that is bothering me. Once I'm done with it, I will have a temporary relief. And again, I will start with the cycle of feeling some kind of sorrow, some kind of sadness, or some kind of disappointment. These cycles and bouts of disappointments can change. Sometimes it can be financial stress. Sometimes it can be the stress of losing a loved one. Sometimes it could be the stress boredom. It could be as simple as that. Sometimes it could be cynicism that is born within you, which is causing you problem. It could be an emotional or a real life-threatening pain that you experience. It could be any form of pain, sorrow, suffering, disappointment that you experience. Only the nature of disappointment changes, and it is cyclical. This contemplation on the question that how do I end all forms of suffering for once and all, that is the question that I think we should ask when we sit to contemplate next. So first type of query is, who am I? Second type of query is that how do I end my suffering for good? When I combine these two questions, if I could know who am I, all forms of suffering will go away. My suffering arises because of this misconception of who am I. I consider myself as an isolated being who limited by where he's placed in life, physically, geographically, limited by time and space, limited by his ethnicity, limited strength, limited intellectual capacity, limited presence, limited by a family and friends who are around them. So my limited experience makes me exclusive. And that exclusivity is a misconception The idea that I am not this limited being, and that if I could recognize who am I truly, then I will understand how powerful, how all knowing, and how limitless I am. And this knowledge of who I am truly will bring an end to my suffering, because my true self is untouched by any kind of suffering. So the inquiry of who am I and the inquiry of how to end the sorrow for good, these two actually merge. Either you find out a method that will help you to end your sorrow and you exercise that method, or you go after the question of who you are, and that will help you understand you never touched by any of your disappointing experiences of this life. So these two are primary questions that we have been trying to discuss. Any thoughts or comments, please? Now, so we discussed the qualities of a student and how you can prepare to inquire correctly. Then we discussed anatomy of self. Then we discussed the role of this universe that I see. Then we discussed the nature of the Brahman. Then we went into methods of inquiry. Now, in the methods of inquiry, these three primary ways to inquire can be supported by the 15 point or the 15 limb approach of yoga that Shankaracharya provided. That is also something that we discussed, that we concluded last week. There is one important method of inquiry or contemplation that remains. There are four statements. Those four statements alone are enough to summarize what we have discussed. If I could contemplate on any one of the statements that I'm going to mention, and I could unspool it, they will all point to the same thing, and it so Mahavakya. Mahavakya is the first one is Tat Tvam Asi, that thou art. So that is Brahman. Thou is myself. Brahman is me. So Brahman equals to the Atman or the self. So that's the first statement, that thou art. Second one is Aham Brahmasmi. I am Brahman. So I, the self, not the limited ego self, but the infinite awareness that I am, is truly Brahman. So let me first state all the four, then I come to explanation. Consciousness is Brahman. That means Brahman. Thou means myself. If we two are same, then I. So that is from the perspective of Brahman. That statement is, if I had to say that same statement, then ask me, I am Brahman. So these are two statements from the point of view of the Brahman and from the point of view of self. Then comes Prajnanam Brahma, the factual statement, Brahman. Prajnanam is consciousness. So consciousness is Brahman. And if you map out that thou art, if consciousness is Brahman and I am Brahman, so I am also consciousness, and finally I am Atma Brahman. So these are four statements from four different. These are the four statements. Now let us look at the idea of what is Brahman and how I am Brahman one more time. So this is what we have been discussing. When I am doing a puja or a ritualistic, when I'm praying to a god, then I distance myself and God. Like I am praying to an almighty and I want that God to help me out. If I'm stuck, if I'm poorly prepared in an exam, we have prayed for a God to help us out from a tough situation. And when we pray to a God, we think that God and myself are two different beings. God has more power and he has more control over myself and my destiny and everything around me, the whole universe. He can help me with a solution to my current problem. There is a gap between myself and the God. This is challenged in Vedantic philosophy. God can be almighty, but you too are God. So you are also all powerful. This self that you feel limited right now is actually the all powerful, almighty, limitless, ever joyful God that you think is outside of you. You are actually that. And the philosophy and the teaching is to explain this point of view that this self is Brahman. it tries to explain this line from different angles. So when I say I am pure awareness, this witness, that I am witness to my body, my sensations, I am witness to my mind, my thoughts, my emotions, I am witness to my habits, my samskaras, and my mental patterns. I witness. And this witness is different from everything else. And this witness is nothing else but pure awareness. This pure awareness is myself, is the Brahman. I'm looking for validation. So the search is not actually a search, but it has to be a realization. So you do not actually acquire this knowledge from outside. You happen to realize who you are, and then you can say confidently that this self is Brahman. And Atma Brahman, or this self is Brahman. These are four statements. They all point out to the same thing. Thoughts and comments, please. These two statements need to be contemplated carefully. So I could say I am Brahman, and hence I do not need, like, if I could really say I am Brahman, then there is no problem. If I could really understand that I am not the truly the awareness that I think I am, that if I could say with realization, this statement will mean very it will sound very different. The moment I say with an intellectual understanding, up till that point where I have realized Aham Brahmasmi, or I am Brahman, is from the standpoint of ego. This is something that one must contemplate and understand, that this is only an intellectual understanding that I have right now, that I am Brahman. And hence, I need to be humble, that I need to learn, that I need to practice meditation, that I need to inquire, that I need to exercise everything that a good student should exercise. The only caveat here is that understand that I am Brahman is a statement that we are doing from an intellectual point of view, not from a state of realization as of now. Now, because we are talking about I am Brahman, what is Brahma? We should, like, the idea of pure consciousness or awareness, that we must revisit one more time. Not only what I am truly, or this self is, this needs to be clarified again. The three states that we experience: the waking state, the sleep state where I am dreaming, and the state where I am in deep sleep. So if I approach the idea of what is Brahman, I am neither of the three states. I am neither the waking state, nor I am the deep sleep state, nor I am the state where I am experiencing things in my dream. Even though when I experience things in my dream, they look real. My life, of course, I feel is real. And the deep sleep, I know I have slept deep enough. So there is a realization there as well. But I am neither of the three states that I experience. Then what am I? If I'm not the three states, there could be other intermediary states of my consciousness, like being in deep coma, or like an inert object, like a pen or a stone. These are inert objects which do not have any apparent consciousness. They are just there. And then there is the extremity of God consciousness. So am I the God consciousness, or am I the inert consciousness? I am neither of the three states, or nothing in between. So according to Neti Neti, or according to definition of Brahman, I am neither of these. Something like Brahman is not something that can be heard, smelled, touched, tasted, or seen. So nothing of my senses can actually be part of Brahman. So I could not experience Brahman, nor is Brahman any of the experiences that I can have with all my five senses. It goes on to explain what is Brahman. I am in Neti Neti mode, that the idea of Brahman cannot be grasped by my hands. It cannot be physically acquired. That is also not Brahman Neti Neti. It is beyond thought, it is beyond logic, and it is beyond language as well. It is, language always played an important role in Shaivism and in Vedantic philosophy. There is a whole textbook on Maitrikara where the alphabets of Sanskrit language is associated with one aspect of creation. Language comes up for discussion in mantras. I keep questioning Neti Neti. These are the things that have been discounted from the idea of Brahman. Then what is Brahman? The self that is continuous and unchanging, this awareness that I'm aware that I'm awake right now. And in my dreaming state that I'm awake, I'm totally aware of the dream that is happening. And that awareness helps me realize that I was in deep sleep. That deep awareness is what I am. So if I now iti, what is it? Then the mantra or the verse that goes on to explain what is Brahman, it says it is the silence of the universe. It is taking the word Om, or it is breaking the Om into 3 syllables, and it is appropriating the waking state, the dream state, and the deep sleep state to each of the syllable of Om. And the silence that comes after it is being appropriated to the Brahman. The origin of sound or syllable or language, the first vibratory motion, it happened in the deep silence of pure awareness. Even Om is not pure consciousness. The silence which holds the Om, that is what pure consciousness is. Then it goes on to describe peace and bliss, like ultimate peace and ultimate bliss, endless peace and endless bliss is what Brahman is, and one that cannot be divided into two. That non dual aspect of awareness is what you call pure Brahman. And finally, it states that if you have the waking state and the dream state and the deep sleep state, where these 3 states play out is what you call Turiya. That Turiya state is the state which beholds the 3 states. That Turiya state is what you call pure awareness. So these are the 3 states held in the 4th state of Turiya, pure consciousness or pure awareness, where these 3 states appear and disappear. Like dreams appear and disappear in my consciousness, similarly, the collective dream state and the collective deep sleep state of this whole universe has an opportunity to appear and disappear in the 4th state that is called the Turiya. Turiya is what we need to realize within ourselves. So this is how Brahman is described. Thoughts, questions, comments? Just ponder this for a moment.
Excuse me, sir. Just
Yes.
one question. If finally that appear and disappear dissolves in pure consciousness?
Yes, they appear and disappear in pure consciousness. No
Necessarily
extra,
static means, yeah, that they dissolve, like that means dissolve in that consciousness. It's like that.
there is no extra effort to dissolve.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not that we are being distracted. That is an idea which is contested.
Thank you.
So, Aham Brahmasmi or Prajnanam Brahman. Consciousness is Brahman, and the previous discussion is from the point of view of how Mandukya Upanishad describes what is consciousness. Do you think this knowledge is useful?
Very deep, but it is needed in today's world, very much needed, because there is so much outside, so much turbulence is there. Make our own self inner peace. I think this knowledge is needed.
The way this whole thing helps me, if I engage in such a contemplation, like when I sit, I'm trying to expand the definition that I have for myself. So this expansion in definition of my own self helps me temporarily to break the limits that I have put on myself because of my immediate situations, like internal thought processes and external situations. So even if I can break away from them intellectually, that gives me some relief, some hope, some room to maneuver, because for any difficult situation that I find myself in, the most important aspect is that do I have hope to maneuver out of it? If I have hope to maneuver out of it, then my brain functions. There is an opportunity for my brain to look for a solution. If I am too bogged down by my circumstances and what I am experiencing right now, and I feel there is no hope, I feel I'm too powerless to handle the experiences I'm experiencing right now, then it becomes a challenge. If I engage with this kind of a thought process, am I actually the witness that I am being told by the scriptures I am? Am I limitless? If I engage with this, it will be a useful exercise to give myself some kind of a base layer of hope, not a hope which will help me answer my immediate queries, but I will become more positive, more hopeful, more like I will expand my own possibilities. So, this is how this inquiry can help me in real life.
Absolutely, sir. I agree with you. It's very hard to keep your mind, thoughts in a proper balance. Studies are needed in today's era. Giving these 12 sessions, it was wonderful hearing and understanding the things through you. Thank you
Thank you.
so much.
Now, let us go back to Prajnanam Brahma. Consciousness is Brahman. If I'm talking about consciousness, remember how we divided our mind into multiple layers? He was one of it, intellect. So consciousness is different from intellect. And like the first thing that I mentioned today that you could keep for your contemplative study, we started off with what is an appearance and how do you differentiate these two words, appearance and truly existing. Second thing that I mentioned was, who am I? That question is a very important contemplative question that I should come back to over and over again. Third question that I genuinely encourage, how do I end my suffering for good? This question has a far reaching impact on my behavior. And fourth question that I am suggesting is to differentiate between intellect slash thought and consciousness, to ponder upon this actively, that these two words mean different things. How I experience it is thoughts and emotions and intellect can be witnessed, but what is witnessing them is pure consciousness. This needs to be understood and lived and relived, and you need to bring back your attention to this idea that intellect and consciousness is different. Bring this up for discussion in your own mind. The study of philosophy will become more relevant to you. So that's something that we must understand. Now, Tat Tvam Asi, let's come to this. I'm taking each of the Mahavakyas one by one and I'm highlighting what is it that we can remember from them, because they mean things like Prajnanam Brahman and consciousness is Brahman. It's a good fact to know. But what I can bring out of it is a contemplative study of that intellect and consciousness are two different things. And that is what helps me to go beyond my intellect to understand who I am truly. Now, this one comes from Samved. Here, the example is that of gold and jewelry. So you take up gold and you make jewelry out of it. So you take up pure consciousness and you make individualized beings out of it. So we are all individualized beings. and you have different forms from the same substance. This idea is important to bring about change in outlook, to bring in more compassion into our lives. If I start thinking myself in terms of consciousness and pure consciousness, and that I am part of the larger Brahman and I am Brahman, this gold and jewelry that from the same substance, individualized beings have come out, helps me to bring about compassion and to see myself and others in the same light. So Tat Tvam Asi has this particular role, same substance creating different individualized forms. And how does that impact my point of view of humanity? Like the quest for power you see in the world right now, people going for power, leaders wanting unlimited power. You can see how distorted it looks and how harmful it is for the world. Similarly, us as individuals, we have this innate desire for strength and power so that we could fix everything that is wrong in my life. So, this power that we are not leaders and we don't pursue power in that sense, but world leaders pursue power in that sense. They also want to say Aham Brahmasmi, that I am he, I am powerful and I am the most powerful person in this whole wide world. And this is where the egocentric exclamation of or Aham Brahmasmi will look so distorted. So when you want to project power and you become all powerful, you must understand that as a individualized person who is still under the influence of Maya and has not recognized who he or she truly is, my expression of Aham Brahmasmi, if it is being projected out in the world, is actually very distorted. If I can see the distortions of the leaders, but I cannot see the distortion I bring about in my own behavior when I seek control, when I seek power on others, when I want to manipulate others and I want them to behave in a certain manner, your projection of power will also look very distorted in your limited circle. So, Aham Brahmasmi is, you ponder it from the point of view of how your ego plays out in the real world. Because we have this inner desire to understand, we want to say it in the most real way. When I have peeled off layers of my ego and I have realized who I am, but we rush things and we project power and we project this idea of Aham Brahmasmi, which looks distorted from a distance. For an outsider, it is easier to see. We project this idea of Aham Brahmasmi. It is difficult to see from within. The contemplative study is how does my ego plays out in my real world. So Aham Brahmasmi, you check and you recheck how does your ego plays out in the real world. That's the takeaway thing from this Mahavakya. That's how I see it. Now, the self is Brahman or Ayam Atma Brahma. This comes from Atharvaved. So, this is where the self is Brahman. This is the most direct statement, as if it's a matter of fact that the self is Brahman earlier. This statement I will use as to focus on the idea of the self. I have exercised to see how I am. I will bring my attention to the idea of self and I will see who am I actually and am I the witness. I will intellectually boil myself down to the idea of what is witness. So these are the four questions, four Mahavakyas, and the practical usage or the contemplative usage of these four statements. Thoughts. To conclude our series on philosophy, all I will try to point you to is the two questions that I started off with today. Who am I, or what am I really, or what I consider myself to be in any form? Take up this contemplation of how to end your own sorrow for good. If you ask, what you will get clarity on is pleasure and happiness. Pleasure brings me temporary happiness, but happiness in real sense will be permanent in nature. So when I, from limited things, like when I want to express my anger on someone and I burst out, that gives me a temporary relief. But if I choose my words carefully and I express my disappointment with someone, that takes effort, but that can salvage a relationship to a measured response that salvages a relationship, that gives you relief, satisfaction in the longer run. The difference between thinking of the immediate and thinking of the long term. Similarly, if you think about food, things that give you happiness in the instant, that kind of food is generally harmful to you, but something that you eat to build your body, to build strength, to bring stamina, to be disease free, that kind of food may not give you that kind of excitement, that kind of sensory pleasure. The food that gives you a lot of taste, if you are eating just for taste, then you're short charging food. While if you are eating for nutrition, then that is such a good way to eat. So again, you are going from temporary to long term. Similarly, if you look at anything that requires effort for the long term, will require discipline, will require thought process, will require creativity, will require application. If I am trying to end my suffering for good, then the effort required will be more. If I want to liberate myself to come out from this cycle of birth, death, and rebirth, then the effort will be maximum and effort will be on all fronts. So you could choose one section where you want to think long term and apply yourself. While you are doing so, you remind yourself, how do I bring an end to my suffering for good? You pick up any aspect of your life and you go ahead with it. You will see how it impacts every other aspect of your lived experience. So this is the practical usage of Vedantic philosophy. That's all from me today. Any other thought you have, you feel free to share. All right. Thank you. I'll give you one trivia before I end today. In the last 11 sessions, all of you put together have asked me 78 questions. Thank you, everyone.